Jacob's cooking baby pudding or allergen mousse. I'm not a doctor, I'm a chef. I don't know much about babies' immune systems. I know a little bit about not killing people with allergens. I do it all the time at work, or I try to avoid doing such things. As a parent, I'm obviously very concerned with the health and well-being of my son, who's 7 months old, almost 8. And I really don't want to hurt him with what I feed him. And I really want him to become excited about food and to enjoy eating. Now, there's pretty clear advice from Allergy UK and from the NHS, and you should be seeking your allergy advice from Allergy UK and from the NHS and not from me, because I'm an idiot chef. But to sum the advice up, they say that from 6 to 12 months, it's advisable to introduce the commonest allergens for babies to them one at a time. And if your baby's okay, then probably that food is not an allergen for him or her at that time, and you can try the next one. Now, this is all well and good, and the allergens which they say that you should check early on are wheat or gluten, and soy, and milk, and eggs, and fish, and shellfish, which I think includes crustaceans and bivalves, so shrimp and clams and mussels, seeds like sesame seeds, tree nuts, and peanuts. And now each time you give this to your baby the first time, you're a bit nervous because you're worried that you're going to kill the poor little tyke. But what you're then supposed to do is make sure that they get all of these allergens regularly. The advice that I've seen says probably about once a week. It's perfectly doable out of 21 solid meals a week, and we've got a list of 9 allergens here, so that's quite doable. I kind of want my baby's meal times to focus on what he enjoys eating and having fun with him. And if I have to make sure that he has mussels once a week, and shrimp once a week, and fish once a week, and soy once a week, and peanuts once a week, it all gets a bit hard to administer. So I have developed something which maybe millions of people have developed before, I have no idea, but a really simple recipe for something which is actually quite tasty. I like it, and it's something which you can make in a batch, and depending on what ingredients you used, you can freeze it either before or after cooking. And it's just a little pot of stuff that you steam cooked, and I can feed it to him once a week. And I know that he's had all his allergens, which I've already tested him for. So the key ingredient here, and this really is a key ingredient, is that you have an allergy tested baby. You have a baby that you've already tried all these ingredients on, and you know that they're safe. You do not want to give this to a baby if you don't know that they can eat it okay. And when you're selecting your ingredients, this is the tricky lot. I've got fish, a bivalve mollusk, so it could be clams or cockles or mussels, and I've got a prawn. Now what we're going to do is we're going to blend a load of stuff up, put it into smaller little ramekins, and then steam them and then feed them to our baby. Now this recipe makes enough for about five or six little pots. So what have we got? We've got an egg. Egg is an allergen. Everything in here, by the way, can either be omitted or substituted if your baby is allergic to one of these foods. The only tricky one is the egg. We'll talk about that in a second. Milk. This is 150 ml of milk-ish. I haven't actually measured this, but about that, or about a glass of milk. Tofu. This is a 40-gram lump. If you're in America, that's a couple of ounces. 40-ish gram piece of white fish. This is a lovely piece of cod. I've got a half dozen mussels, which I've just steamed. I've got a large prawn tail, it's about an ounce, 28, 25, 30 grams, something like that. I've got some kind of cracker. It has to be a wheat cracker. This is a breadstick because it's what I happen to have. You could use a Carr's table water biscuit or Jacob's cracker. You should use Jacob's cracker because I'm Jacob and this is Jacob's mousse. And then we have nuts. I'm going to give about 2 teaspoons worth, that's about 2 teaspoons worth of peanut butter. Maybe a touch more, so 20 grams or just shy of an ounce. This is a fancy peanut butter because I've run out of my normal go-to childhood favourite, but it doesn't really matter. About a teaspoon of a nut butter, and that has to be a tree nut. So peanuts are also called ground nuts because they grow in the ground. So when you see ground nut oil, it's not oil of ground nuts, but oil of nuts from the ground. Tree nuts are different and are a different allergen. This is hazelnut. If I had almond, I would use that, or macadamia, just because the flavour of this tastes a little bit like a very mild rice cracker with satay sauce kind of thing, if there's not too much interfering with it. So if you use like almond or macadamia nut butter, you get, to my mind, a slightly nicer flavour. Dylan doesn't really care what kind of nut I use, and I'm using the one that I've got. And I've got tahini. Tahini is for the seeds. Now you'll note that all the nuts are already ground into a butter or a paste, and the reason for that is that these things, sesame seeds and nuts, offer two threats to a baby. One is in the event that the baby is allergic to them, they can cause a reaction, and the other is a choke hazard. So those are all ground up. I have a stick blender, and I'm just going to blend this thing. I blended it well. This is now super smooth, thick. It's kind of the texture of tahini actually. Like a thick, slightly wobbly, very viscous, gross coloured cream. And I'm going to divide it equally-ish between my ramekins. This is not safe to eat yet because it's got like raw prawns in it, raw fish, which I don't want to be feeding my baby, although I'd be quite comfortable eating them. Yeah, you can definitely get 6 out of this. I'm getting 5 because that's what I've got in front of me. And then I'm going to cling film them. The cling film is important if you're freezing because it protects the surface and stops it from getting freezer burn. Freezer burn is because of the behaviour of water migrating to the coldest surface. If you put something uncovered in the freezer, water will gradually escape from your foodstuff and attach itself to the inside of your freezer. So all that frost on the inside of the freezer comes from partly. And that's ready to freeze if you had suitable for home freezing ingredients, or to cook and then freeze, or to cook and then serve. All you have to do is steam it for like 10-15 minutes until it's cooked through. And there are 2 ways of knowing that it's cooked through. One is that it's started to rise up in the middle, and the other is if you have a food thermometer, you can probe it, and it needs to reach at least 75 degrees inside for safety's sake. And because it's a baby, I normally take it up to 80 degrees inside. And you can steam it in a pot. You can just put it in a small saucepan on something to keep it off the bottom with water. Doesn't matter if the water comes to the bottom of your ramekin or not. Or you can steam it in one of these. This is possibly the most useless thing I've got in my kitchen. I never use it. What I do use it for is steaming my allergen pudding, aka baby mousse. So for using this, I was going to put my pudding in the steamer, close the lid. It's really hard to do backwards. Close the lid and let it steam. 10-15 minutes. Bob's your uncle. So I think my baby pudding is steamed. I'm going to open it. I'm trying to burn myself. I'm doing this backwards for the camera. And I know he's done because, not the cling film stoned up. It didn't because I actually pricked a hole in it checking the temperature earlier. But underneath the cling film, the pudding, I hope you can see in there, has started to rise. If you're going to freeze it, leave it cling wrapped. I'm going to serve it to my son. I'm going to double check the temperature because I've got a thermometer probe, and it's coming up to 75. And that's just cooked. If you want it to be sure, you can really come up to 80, but 75 is fine. This is too hot to eat, but in a minute I will show you, prove to you that it is palatable to babies, or to a baby. I haven't tested it on others. Oh, so here we have hungry Dylan, who I know is not allergic to anything in here. We have our baby pudding, aka allergen mousse, and look, he's quite excited. You want it? Ooh. Normally he eats in his chair. How is it? Hey. It's really delicious, and I don't know how he perceives flavour yet, but he finds it palatable, and I think it's more about textures for him. He really likes the softness of it. It's kind of a solid that smushes in his mouth. So I give him this once a week, and I mean he still gets like prawns at other times in the week, and he still gets milk, cow's milk sometimes, in other foods, and he still gets egg, scrambled egg once or twice a day. So it's not like I avoid the allergens because they're in here, But having them in here means I've ticked them off the list and I don't need to worry, I don't need to keep track of what he's eating. Yeah, so I find this useful. I hope you do too. Jacob cooked allergen pudding, baby pudding, allergen mousse, baby mousse for Dylan with love. Come.